There's something quietly devastating about how addiction creeps into our lives. You don't always notice it at first. It's not always a syringe or a bottle. Sometimes, it looks like your 9th scroll on Instagram in under a minute. Sometimes, it's needing someone's text just to feel okay. Sometimes, it's a second episode, then a third, then a season, and it starts to feel normal, until it doesn't. You're not chasing a high anymore. You're escaping a low. And the scary part is, most of us don't even know where that low comes from. And if you asked Swiss psychologist Carl Jung how to treat addiction, he wouldn't start with a detox. He wouldn't even focus on the behavior. He'd ask about your soul. Because Jung believed addiction wasn't the problem. It was the symptom. We live in a world that's dopamine deprived and stimulus obsessed. Our brains are constantly trying to feel better, but they're stuck in a loop. Dopamine, the chemical we associate with motivation and reward, is drying up. Not just because of what we do, but because of what we don't understand about ourselves. Jung called this the disconnection from the self. Not your ego, not your job title. Yourself, the deepest, most integrated version of who you truly are. The part of you that's connected to purpose, creativity, and meaning. Addiction, according to Jung, is a spiritual thirst. A call from the unconscious, not just for relief, but for wholeness. In his words, every form of addiction is bad, no matter whether the narcotic be alcohol or morphine or idealism. What he meant was, the root isn't the substance, it's the emptiness. This is where most modern approaches to addiction fall short. We treat the habit, but we don't meet the human. We patch the leak, but ignore the cracked foundation. Jung believed that lasting healing only comes when we're brave enough to look inward, at the shadow parts of ourselves we've buried, the parts we judge, the parts we fear, the parts that are begging to be seen, not silenced. And if that feels overwhelming, you're not alone. Because here's the truth. The shadow isn't bad. It is repressed energy. And ironically, it's where the healing lives. But here's the amazing part. Wait for it. Jung didn't just leave us with theories. He left a map, a psychological and spiritual toolkit to begin reintegrating what's been lost. Tools that help us understand why the dopamine is gone in the first place, and how to live in a way that naturally restores it. Not by chasing pleasure, but by aligning with purpose. We're going to get into those tools, practical ones, spiritual ones, even ones you can start today. So stay until the end of this video, because what you'll discover isn't just how to treat addiction, it's how to finally understand the part of you that's been calling out through it. And before we continue, if you're someone who loves expanding your mind and exploring the deeper layers of life, make sure to subscribe to Fractal Wisdom so you never miss a moment of this journey inward. So if addiction is the symptom and not the cause, then what's underneath it? Let's talk about dopamine, not as a buzzword, but as a messenger. Dopamine isn't just the feel-good chemical. It's the drive behind every little action that makes us feel alive. It is motivation, anticipation, and reward. The ping of a message, the first bite of dessert, the warm text that says, "thinking of you." And when you're running low on dopamine, life starts to feel grey, uninspired, and flat. That's when the craving begins. But dopamine depletion doesn't start with Netflix or fast food. It usually starts way earlier. It starts with emotional suppression, with environments where authenticity had a cost, where maybe you had to be the good kid, or the strong one, or the fixer. You learn to push your needs aside, to survive, and in that push, you disconnected from the self. Jung called this psychic splitting. It's when you bury the parts of you that weren't welcome and build a mask instead, And what does the brain do with that kind of chronic disconnection? It searches for relief. Some chase it in a bottle, others in a partner or a screen. But it's not about the thing. It's about the feeling they're trying to recreate. A spark of meaning, a sense of being enough, even if just for a moment. So now we're caught, not in addiction, but in a loop. Inner emptiness, leading to dopamine crash, escape behavior, shame, and then more emptiness. Carl Jung understood that healing this loop isn't about willpower. It's about integration. He once wrote, "We don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." That means turning toward the part of you that's hurting, not avoiding it. That means asking, what pain is this addiction trying to anesthetize? And what part of me have I abandoned in order to cope? This is where Jung's approach radically differs from traditional models. He didn't just want you sober, he wanted you whole. And that wholeness starts with awareness, with seeing the patterns not as failures but as clues, little smoke signals from your unconscious guiding you home. This is why Jung believed dreams were sacred, why symbols and archetypes mattered. They were messages from the parts of ourselves we forgot. The child, the rebel, the healer, the wounded one, all still alive inside you. And until we make space for them, we'll keep trying to feel whole through things that were never meant to complete us. But there's good news. Because the moment you stop seeing addiction as a failure and start seeing it as a message, is the moment healing begins. Addiction isn't who you are. It's a coping mechanism your psyche created to protect you from a pain you never got to process. But now, you're ready. You're curious. And that's everything. So let's explore 3 tools, practical, spiritual, and soul-nourishing, that can help you connect with your deeper self and reveal what's really behind those compulsive patterns. These tools aren't about fighting the addiction, they're about listening to it. Tool number 1, shadow work. Carl Jung's most revolutionary idea was the shadow, the hidden part of our psyche where we store everything we've rejected, denied, or judged about ourselves. The anger, the sadness, the jealousy, the fear, even the desire to feel powerful, loved, or seen. These parts don't disappear. They just go underground, and they leak out through our addictions, projections, and patterns. Shadow work is the process of making the unconscious conscious. It's sitting down with yourself and asking, what part of me have I locked away because I thought it was unacceptable? What truth do I not want to look at but desperately need to? You can begin shadow work through journaling. Try asking yourself, if my addiction had a voice, what would it say to me? Write without judgment. Let it speak. You might be surprised how much truth is waiting just beneath the surface. Tool number 2, breath work. Now, Jung never taught breath work, but if he were alive today, he might see it as one of the most direct ways to meet the unconscious, through the body. Breathwork is the practice of using conscious rhythmic breathing to bypass the thinking mind and tap into stored emotional energy. Our breath is the one bodily function that's both automatic and under our control, and it can be used as a portal to the unconscious. When you breathe consciously, especially in a connected or circular pattern, you send a signal to your nervous system that says, it's safe now, you can let go. What often follows is the release of buried emotions, unresolved trauma, or even long-forgotten memories. Some people cry, some laugh, some shake, some feel clarity they've never felt before. This isn't just emotional detox, it's psychological integration. You're clearing the energetic blocks that addiction tried to numb. Addiction numbs, breathwork reveals. Even one session can make you realize the thing you were craving wasn't a substance, it was yourself. Tool number 3, symbolic ritual as a dialogue with the soul. Carl Jung often said, the soul speaks in images. That's why symbols, dreams, and rituals carry such power. They bypass the intellect and speak directly to the unconscious. When we're stuck in addiction, it's not just our habits that are out of sync. It's often our inner world that's been silenced or ignored. Ritual becomes a way to reopen that dialogue. But we're not talking about empty ceremony. We're talking about a conscious act of connection. Here's a powerful symbolic ritual you can try. Find a quiet space and light a candle. Fire is a timeless symbol of purification. Sit with a mirror and look into your own eyes, not to judge, not to criticize, but to witness. Say aloud, I know I've been trying to escape something. I don't fully understand it yet, but I'm here, ready to listen. Write a letter to the part of you that's addicted, not to shame it, but to understand it. Then, fold it up and place it beneath the candle. Let it burn for 15 minutes while you breathe and just stay present. This is less about fixing and more about reconnecting. You're letting your deeper self know you're not alone anymore. So now that we've looked at the symptoms, we've met the shadow and started the work of reconnection. It's time for the real alchemy, the transformation. Because healing addiction isn't just about breaking a habit, it's about becoming someone new, or rather, someone truer. It's about answering the call that addiction was trying to silence all along. This is the path Carl Jung called individuation, the journey of becoming your whole self. Not perfect, not polished, but integrated. You see, most people think healing means returning to who they were before the addiction. But Jung would tell you, that version of you was already split, already disconnected, already suffering. The goal isn't to go back. It's to go through and become the version of you that addiction was pointing you toward, the version of you who feels whole without needing to escape. Let's talk about what that actually looks like in everyday life. Step 1. Create a life that feeds your soul, not just your schedule. Jung believed that most neuroses stemmed from a life not lived. That includes the job that drains you, relationships that numb you, the routine that leaves your spirit unexpressed. You don't heal in a vacuum. You heal in an environment that reflects your truth. So ask yourself, what in my life feeds the addiction, and what feeds my authenticity? Start small. One choice a day, one honest conversation, one creative outlet, one boundary honored. These are not just acts of discipline, they are acts of soul. Step 2. Let meaning replace stimulation. Addiction thrives in a life that is overstimulated and underconnected. We scroll instead of speak. We binge instead of reflect. We consume instead of create. So instead of asking, how do I stop the habit? Ask, what is this craving asking for? Emotionally, spiritually. Replace the dopamine loop with meaning loops. Things like creating art without judging it, sitting with silence and asking yourself what you feel, reading something that stirs you, not just entertains you, spending time with people who hold space, not just small talk. When your life becomes a space where your true self is welcome, addiction starts to lose its grip. Step 3. See relapse as a messenger, not a failure. Jung was clear. Healing is not linear. The unconscious doesn't move in straight lines. It spirals, it circles, it repeats patterns until they're truly integrated. Relapse, if it happens, isn't shameful. It is information. It's your psyche saying, you missed something. Let's look again. You are not back at square one. You're just on a deeper layer of the spiral. And this time, you've got tools, awareness, language, community, compassion. The real miracle is, When addiction becomes the reason you found yourself. When the thing that once broke you becomes the doorway to your liberation. Because that's what individuation is. Not self-improvement, not recovery. It is reclamation. The returning of all the lost parts of you. The shadow, the child, the artist, the dreamer, the spiritual seeker, and weaving them into one radiant, coherent life. So if you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. This is the beginning of your return. If this journey has spoken to you, even in a whisper, comment below, "I'm coming home." And if you haven't already, subscribe to Fractal Wisdom for more videos that go way beyond the surface and straight into the soul. You are not broken, you are becoming. Your real self is waiting.